Hi beautiful, welcome to my channel. In today's video we are going to be reviewing the new Makeup by Mario Master Mattes The Neutrals palette. I was hating on this one a little bit the other day on my Will I Buy It video, but I mainly wanted to get your guys' opinion on whether or not I should pick it up to review. I'm not excited about the color story of this palette, but it is obviously a useful palette, especially for everyday. If you don't want to wear shimmers to work, especially for makeup artists. I feel like the Makeup by Mario line in general is very makeup artist driven. And so in today's video, we are going to swatch it. We're going to test it out. I'll do a few looks with it. And I also wanted to compare it to the Makeup by Mario palette that I have in my collection, which is the Ethereal Eyes palette from Makeup by Mario. This is a huge favorite of mine, so we'll do some swatch comparisons to this one. And then I also wanted to compare the new Makeup by Mario palette to the Cool Tone row in the Patrick Ta Major Dimensions 3 palette. This one is divided between warms and cools, and so I wanted to compare these cool tone shades to the Makeup by Mario shades. This new Makeup by Mario palette is now available at Sephora, and if by the end of this video you decide you want to go for it, please shop for it using the link I'm leaving you down below in the description box. This one comes in the exact same packaging as the original Master Mattes palette from Makeup by Mario, which has a much warmer color story. So it's the traditional black, very simple cardboard outside box. On the back of the palette, it says that it's got a 24-month shelf life and it is made in the USA. Here's what the actual packaging looks like. It is plastic rather than, this is what I have to compare it to. The Ethereal has like a metal type packaging. It's cold to the touch. This is a plastic white box. Very simple. It just says by Mario on the front. And then once you open it, take a look right here at the color story. I will say first impressions, it does not look as cool toned as it looked like online. Granted, it is called the Neutrals, so it does actually have neutral shades rather than cool tones. I feel like in some of the promo pictures online, it looked kind of like ashy and dusty, and I'm looking at it here in person, and the only very cool toned looking shade is this gray shade right here. For the most part, the rest of the colors do actually seem more so on the neutral side rather than cool tone. So I think the promo pictures were deceiving in a good way, because so far it is a little better than I expected. On the back of the palette here, as you can see, the shades don't necessarily have names, they just have numbers. They're called MN, and then it's 1 through 12. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and touch these. Let's swatch them, see how they perform on the skin. Here's MN1, MN2, MN3, and MN4. I'm going to build them up a little so we can appreciate them better on camera. I built the first 3 shades up a little bit so you can see them better. This one didn't need any building up. Let's go for the second row. Here's what they look like on my fingers. This right here, this pinky hued type shade, is one of my favorites from this palette. So here's MN5, MN6, 7, and 8. I'm just gonna grab a tiny bit more 7. And as you saw, these didn't really need much building up. They are nice and pigmented. So far, what I can tell from picking up the shimmers with my fingers is that they are very, very soft powders, like extremely finely milled type powders. And the pigmentation is definitely there. This is the darkest row, row number 3. So here is MN9, 10, 11, and 12. And so take a look right here at the palette, now fully swatched. The shades are definitely soft, easy to pick up, and as you can see, pretty nice and pigmented. I'm touching a matte shade from the Ethereal Eyes palette, and they feel the same as the shades in the new palette. So this is the improved matte formula. I know that the original Master Mattes palette has a different powder formula, different matte formula that people weren't in love with. When the Ethereal palette came out, we noticed that the formula had definitely improved, and so I wanted to let you know that this is the newer, more improved matte formula. So it's going to be creamy and pigmented and very blendable and much better than the formula from the original Master Mattes palettes. Alright, so let's create some looks with this one. I think I'm going to start with MN4. And I'll be using my Rephr brushes all throughout this video. This is the Rephr number 15. So I'm just going to swipe MN4 all throughout the crease area of my eye, back and forth, to build a little bit of a contour and a little bit of intensity on the outer V and the crease of my eye. And even though this one is still a pretty light shade, you can definitely see it doing its thing and it blended out beautifully. I'm going to intensify it just a bit with MN5 here. I'm going to use the same brush just to add a bit more contour. I'm using it a bit lower on my eye. MN5 is a nice neutral to cool tone shade, I would say, so it's kind of defining that contour of my eye a little more. I'm going to switch to a Rephr number 1, and I definitely want to try this gray shade, which by the way swatched beautifully. So I'm going to add it to the outer third of my eyelid back here, just tapping it in place. And then with the tip of the Rephr number 1, I'm going to blend it into the crease shades, back and forth. And these basically melt into one another. The formula is definitely good. The formula is wonderful. I'm going to fade this gray shade inwards a bit by just swiping back and forth on the edge of it. I think for the center of my eyelid, I'm going to use MN2. And this is a Rephr number 2 brush, a flat brush. And I'm just going to pat it all throughout the eyelid area. And then I'm going to grab the lightest shade, which is MN1. And this is going to be the shade right on the inner corner. And I'm blending it inwards a bit, just fading it in. That looks very pretty. That's definitely a very nice eyeshadow look. With a small blending brush, my Rephr number 13, I'm going to grab MN11 and back and forth right under my lower lash line. I'm going to smudge things down here. And then with that same brush, I'm just going to grab MN4, which was our transition shade, and I'm going to back and forth go all the way to the tear duct area under the eye to get that same ombre effect we have up on the crease. I honestly was hating on this palette so bad in my Will I Buy It video, but it's kind of changing my mind. I like it. That looks super pretty, and I love how easy it was to blend it all out. I'm using a creamy shade for my waterline. And so before any mascara or lashes, that is the first look with this Makeup by Mario Master Mattes palette. So before I show you this look with mascara and lashes and everything, let's move on to look number 2. And I'm going to start with, I think, MN6 right here, Rephr number 15 once again, and this is going to be a slightly more neutral transition shade. MN4, which I use as my transition for the first look, was slightly more cool tone than this one. This one's definitely a bit more on the neutral side, and so I'm just going to back and forth apply this color all throughout the crease. I'm going to grab a little bit of MN3 here on the tip of the brush just to help it diffuse this upper edge a bit better. A little bit more MN6, and I'm just adding it to the outer third of my eyelid here. Still blending it upwards towards the crease area. Rephr number 1, and I'm grabbing the shade MN8, which is a bit more neutral rather than the cool toned I grabbed for the first look. And I'm tapping it on the outer third of my eyelid first, just tapping it in place right there. And now that I have it where I want it, with the tip of the brush, I'm just going to back and forth blend it upwards. I cleaned my Rephr number 15, and I'm going to grab a bit more MN3, and I'm just going to diffuse the top edge of the crease. Rephr number 2 and the shade MN2, and I'm going to use this one once again for the center of the eyelid, just tapping it in place. I want things looking nice and bright right here. And if you see that you create a harsh edge, just go back with your blending brush that you applied the outer corner color with and tap that edge, and that should blend it right in. And then I'm going back to the lightest shade once again, since this is the best one for the inner corner. And I'm going to tap it there and blend it into the eyelid color. So we did basically a very similar eyeshadow look on both eyes. But because we used a lot of cool tones on here and a lot of more neutral shades on here, they don't look the same. They look a bit different, you know? But as far as like the steps we took, they were very similar, right? Rephr number 13 and MN8. And we are going to smoke out my lower lash line. I think I'm going to take it all the way to the tear duct area this time. And then a little bit of MN3 just to really diffuse that. Back and forth once again, same brush. Cream color liner once again. And before I put on any mascara or lashes, this is the final second look, or we could smoke it up a bit more. I wonder if I smoke it up, if it's going to end up looking a lot like this one. Maybe not, because I'm not going to use that same shade. I'm going to use my Rephr number 1 and a little bit of the MN12 shade, which is kind of like a black matte color, and just very lightly add it to the outer third back here to intensify things a bit more. That way I use one more shade from this palette and we can try as many as possible. I barely dipped my brush in the black shade and I got quite a bit of smokiness from that. So these are definitely very pigmented. Use them lightly, especially that black shade. Wow, I swear I barely dipped my brush in. All right, a bit darker, a bit smokier. This is the finished look number 2 now. Let me go ahead and put on some mascara, maybe some lashes. I'll show you the finished looks 1 and 2. And then I think I want to do at least a third one. This has been fun playing with this palette for sure. I've definitely enjoyed it. Here are the looks with just mascara on, no lashes. So take a look right here at look number 1. Just mascara. I love this one. Out of the 2 I've done so far, look number 1 definitely my favorite. And then here is look number 2 with just mascara on. This one's very pretty and smoky and dark, but there's something about the cool tones on this eye that I am really loving. I went ahead and put some lashes on. These are like a little bit flared out, and so these are the finished looks once I have mascara and lashes on and all of that. So take a look right here at look number 1, fully finished with mascara and some lashes on. And look number 2, once again, fully finished. So let's begin with the third look, and I did leave the color I wanted to use most for last, which was this pinky cool tone shade right here. And so with my Rephr number 15 brush, I'm going to use that shade as my transition color this time. And I'm going to back and forth blend it all throughout the crease. I did want to mention the shades are pretty soft, so you do get a little bit of kick up when you put your brush in there sometimes. And I have noticed like a tiny bit of fallout, but the fallout is not anything that you should worry about because it wipes off super easily, especially because it's matte. There's no like clingy shimmers involved, you know. So I don't mind the fallout too much. It's very easy to clean up for sure. And so I'm going to add a bit more of that shade to the outer third of my eyelid back here, and once again just make sure that it blends upwards into the crease. Switching my brush to a Rephr number 1, and I'm going to grab MN10 right here, which is this cool tone brown color. And with this one, I'm going to intensify the outer third of my eyelid, just tapping that shade in place. Tapping it right here. And then with the tip of the brush, I'm starting to blend it into the crease. I'm going to grab a little bit more and just add it to the inner corner as well, tapping it with my brush right here and then slowly blending it upwards. Now that I have that shade blended upwards, I want to highlight the underbrow area just a tad bit. So I'm going to grab the tiniest bit of MN1 on a flat brush, and I'm just going to shade right underneath my eyebrow with it. I'm also going to grab that color and add it to the innermost corner of the eye. And it's going to overlap that brown a bit, and that's okay. We want to blend it in. Ooh, maybe not that much. Hold on. I'm going to go back with the Rephr number 1. And scale it back. There we go. And then I'm going to go to MN3 with my same flat brush, and this is going to be the shade right in the center here. Just tapping it in place with the flat brush. And once again, the Rephr number 1, nothing added. I'm just going to use it to diffuse any edges and just make sure we have a nice transition between all the light and dark colors. For the under eye, I'm going back to MN10 and I'm going to smoke out my lower lash line with a Rephr number 13 all the way to my tear duct area. And then back with MN7, same Rephr number 13, we're just going to smoke that out, make sure it diffuses down here. I added the creamy eyeliner back to my waterline, and so without any lashes, just a bit of mascara. This is the third look right here. I did a halo smoky eye so that you guys could see something different, and I think I used for the most part different colors as well. This is a bit more neutral to cool tone look without using the gray shade. I'm going to put on the lashes again, and I will be back to compare this palette to the other palettes I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Back with eye look number 3, fully finished on both eyes. And so this right here is the final result. I wanted to show you the new Master Mattes Neutral versus Ethereal Eyes from Makeup by Mario side by side, so that you guys can make a decision if you have ethereal eyes on whether or not the Master Mattes Neutral is something that you want. As far as it having shades that are the same on both palettes, I kind of struggled to find shades that were similar to one another. So I compared this one to that one. I compared this one to that one, and I compared like these back here to this one and that one. I'm going to show you the swatches, and you can clearly see that maybe with the exception of like that one and this one being kind of similar, everything else has a pretty different undertone. For the most part, the shades from the Master Mattes Neutrals have much more of a cool undertone in comparison to the matte shades from Ethereal Eyes. As you can see, these shades here have a bit more warmth to them, and then when it came to this one versus this one here, one of them has a lot more rose in it, the other has a lot more gray in it, and these have different undertones as well. So the good news is that if you do go for this one, you are not getting your Ethereal Eyes palette duped by any means. And also, as I said at the beginning of the video, if you have ethereal eyes and you love this matte formula, you can find the same matte formula in the new palettes. The next comparison I wanted to make sure to make was the Master Mattes Neutrals with the Patrick Ta palette, specifically the row at the bottom, which is all cool tone shades. And so you can see these right here. Mainly there are 5 cool tone shades in the Makeup by Mario palette that I wanted to see if I could find in the new Master Mattes palette. And then obviously this one is going to have like 8 extra shades that are not in this one. But take a look right here at how similar the shades are. So what you're seeing is Makeup by Mario right here on this side and the Patrick Ta shades right over here on this side. I will say I felt a difference in pigmentation, but it was depending on the shade. For the 2 lightest shades, I felt like the Patrick Ta palette had more pigmentation and it performed better. But then for the 3 darkest shades, I felt like they were either the same or the Makeup by Mario one might have even had a bit more pigmentation. So they're very, very close in pigmentation to one another. The main difference was with the lighter shades. I did find that Makeup by Mario has to be built up a bit more than the Patrick Ta one, but again, very, very similar. If you already have the Patrick Ta palette, the 5 shades you would have kind of repeated are MN1, MN7, MN9, MN10, and MN12. So these 2 and this one and that one and this one up here, those are the 5 shades that are basically the same as the shades in the Patrick Ta palette. So I wanted to make you aware so that you know if you have the Patrick Ta palette, you are getting 5 repeated shades in this new Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes. So what are my final thoughts? I have a very large makeup collection, so I don't necessarily find still that this new Makeup by Mario palette is a necessity for me. I also love creating looks with shimmery shadows, and so obviously with this one I cannot do that. I would have to combine it with something else. With that said, is it a beautiful palette? Yes. Does it perform beautifully? Yes. So I want you guys to ask yourself whether this is something that you see yourself reaching for a lot before you purchase it. If the answer to that is yes, I see myself reaching for it a lot, maybe for work, maybe for every day, maybe you have single shadows that are shimmered that you want to combine with these mattes, then obviously go for it. And then question number 2 would be, do I already have something in my collection that has the same shades or does the same thing as this new Makeup by Mario palette does. Now, if the answer to that is yes, then I would say sleep on it. You don't need it right away. See if you can find the dupes in your collection for it. But if you just like the convenience of this one, the fact that it's nice and compact and you do see yourself using it often, then absolutely go for it, because it is a beautiful palette, it is useful, it is travel friendly, and most importantly, it is a palette that performs beautifully on the eyes. Those are my final thoughts on this one. I really hope that you guys liked this video, that you liked the looks, that you liked the comparisons. If you did, give the video a thumbs up before you leave. Don't forget to please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I love reviewing eyeshadow palettes, so you don't want to miss out on future videos. And that is all I have for today's video. I love you all so much. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you back in the next one. Bye.